Foundationless frames and bottom screens. To save some time, I've decided to make this video with two different subjects here because somebody called me and commented about foundationless frames. And yes, I do have foundationless frames, but a lot of times the bees will make the big cells and you end up with a lot of drones. And then I've seen a lot of documentaries and a lot of books that say that the bees measure, how they measure when they're building foundation is supposed to turn out perfectly. You see how goofy this one is? So that's a bunch of crap. Different size cells on there. So they didn't do a very good job measuring. And this happens to be a good medium frame, foundationless, with small cells. This is good. They'll fill this with honey or worker bees. But what happens is, I get too many drones towards the end of summer. I don't want all these drones. It increases the mite population in my colonies. Here's just 3 examples, or actually 4 examples here of some frames I grabbed. And this was the only one that I found that I have here in the shed that is actual small cell. So they're good for some reasons. They're good. Some reasons they're good, other reasons they're not good. So this is cheaper, but the bees will do whatever they want on them. More likely to have large cells than you are small cells. Okay, so let me pause this. All right, here's a deep frame, and I had done frames before when I first started beekeeping. It didn't have the wire in there, and then if you're not realizing that it's not a foundation frame, you tip it, and before you know it, you got your comb on the ground. So even with these, you could tip it and do this and that, but if you're trying to knock bees out of a deep, you can still bust loose the top connection there of the comb to the frame. There's wax there, but you got to handle these carefully versus the foundation with the wire, hooked wire going vertically on the frame. So let me pause. If you've been watching my videos, you know I have about 200 colonies, and I've only actually bought 2 bottom boards and 2 bottom screens from Better Bee when I first started beekeeping. I have bought from the Dot and Better Bee, I have bought deeps and mediums because I needed them right away and didn't have time. So Better Bee switched from this size handle to this size handle, and I needed them right away. I didn't have time to build them, but all of the bottom boards except for 2 I have built, and this right here is one I just got done building of a group of some that I'm building. And this here is a bottom screen frame that I'm currently making, and I'll show you how to do this and make it tight so there's not a lot of bumps in that. Not really all that hard to do. Let me show you. I'm sorry I don't have a lot of room in here, but your standard hive is 16¼ inches wide. So you make these sides of these bottom boards, and this here represents a 1/2 inch. It may not be correct, but you try to make that a 1/2 inch. So that makes this is a 1x6. It's basically about 5½ inches wide. And that's important because you're buying number 8 wire cloth or wire mesh, and they call it number 8 because there's 8 wires per inch that go across the screen. So you're buying a 36-inch wide, and I do believe it was like little over 18 inches. I bought a 50-foot roll or 25-foot roll or something like that off of eBay. But it's, I think it was, I forget. Let me measure it real quick. I know it's 18 inches long and it's a little over 16 and a half wide. So this is 18 because it's a 36-inch roll. So you're cutting it, I fold it in half And I find it easier, fold it in half and take some heavy duty scissors and just go through and cut it. So let me pause. You know, this is glued and screwed. This is the back, and I've got some 3/4 inch plywood here fastened to my counter. Let me pause this and I'll show you. Okay, it's upside down. The 3/4 inch plywood fits in between the sides. I take the factory edge, line it up with the back of the screen bottom board, and I make both sides the same. And I take a piece of wood that I've cut. I don't have anything to hold the cell phone, but basically I take, when I get it lined up where I want it, I'll take and I'll put my thumb in there and bend both sides, and then I take a piece of wood, get it in there like that. You don't want your screen past the wood. Okay, and both sides are the same length. Okay, so you nail this one down, and I like to use 1-inch paneling nails because they're ring shanked, they don't rust, and they usually don't stick through any of the wood that I'm doing. So I'm gonna put 5. I put 1 in the center at first, and then I put 2 on each side, so there's 5. Let me pause. Okay, I got that nailed down. And if you cut your pieces square, your wire mesh square, it should be the same on both sides. It's a little bit off, but I can still work with that. So what I do is I go around each side and I push in with my thumb. Okay, like that. And then you get to the towards the front, and of course it won't go in there very easily, but you're just gonna do the best you can. And then you take another piece of wood, put that in there, and this is where I use vice grips. I will use vice grips, and I will clamp it. As I clamp it, I will take a hammer and I will drive that down, and that will put that 90-degree bend in that wire mesh. See, it would be impossible for me to hold that well enough and nail it at the same time. So I use vice grip. I use a vice grip here, and I use a vice grip here. And when I get it the way I like it, and this wood is real tight against the side frame there, and then I'll put a nail in the center, and a nail here, and a nail there, and then I take out the vice grip and I put a nail where that one is. So I'm putting 5 nails on each side of this. So let me pause. Okay, I got my 5 nails, and if you have a little bit of wire sticking up through that, when I'm done with this, I'm going to put it on a table saw and run a nice edge, but I'm not going to take this down any further. You make sure you don't take this down any further, but if this piece of wood here sticks up, or if you have a little bit of wire sticking through, you put it on a table saw and you carefully cut it down. This right here, when I get this all done, I take a razor knife and I'll show you. Okay, I did the second piece on the side, and this piece here, for some reason, it wasn't cut very well, but it's not a big deal. It's up against the screen, and again, I have a little bit of the wire mesh poking through, but I'm going to be running it through the table saw. And then I'll take and I'll bend the front. And then I'll take another piece of wood. And this piece of wood, see how this fits in there tight like that? And then I fold this over. And then I take a hammer and I drive it down, get it where I like it, see? Drive the other side down, and you see the gap? When you nail that, it's going to close that gap. It's going to make this tight. Right now it's not quite all that tight. Pause again. Okay, I have that board nailed down, and then I take this and I continue to bend it down, and I don't have a razor knife with me, but and if it doesn't bend down very well, I'm taking the tab. Let me go get a razor knife. All right, got my razor knife. So you take it, put it at an angle, and you just score it. Like that. Sometimes you may want to go across it again. Fold it back and forth. Sometimes you get some pieces of wire that didn't quite cut. And this right here, if you have it a little bit sticking out, just take a regular screwdriver and you fold it in and tuck it in that gap. Kind of hard to do this with your hand. Let me pause it again. Okay, I got this removed. And you know what? I saved these for my queen cages that get all, the screens get all wore out. I'll save these. Sometime during the winter I'm going to rebuild these queen cages. So let's see how I did. Yeah, it's not too bad. Could have been better. It's not as good as this one over here that I have over here. Yeah, see, that one's better. So they won't all turn out exactly the same, but that's basically how I did this one. And I wasn't videoing this one. Sometimes it's easier to do things when you're not making a video. So I always use a bottom screen underneath my hives. The reason why is during the summer, it helps ventilate the hive to keep it cooler. And you also know during the winter, you put it over, what would be like this. Unless it's up against the wall. If it's up against the wall, I would have that end out, and then I would put a, I put these in there to keep the bees from going in. So in other words, it would be like this. If it's up against that wall there, it would be like that, so I could still get access to it, because if I had it the other way up against the wall, I wouldn't get access to it. But so anywhere that's not up against the wall, of course, it goes like this. And when I do my varroa mite treatments, I take old bath towels and I'll tuck in here. And during the winter, when it's really, really cold and I'm concerned about drafts getting in there, I cut pieces of wood and I put it in there, see, like that. But the reason why you do this is it helps control the varroa mites. If the varroa mites fall off the bees, they get in there and they don't get back up. And you also know what's going on in the hive. If you have waxmouth caterpillars, you'll see poop down here. And if you have varroa mites, of course, you'll see those. And if you have I don't know, wax cappings, a lot of wax down here, you know your hive has been robbed or something's going on in there. So basically, if you don't want to open a hive, you check to see what's going on. First, take a look at what's on the bottom board, and that tells you a lot about what's going on in the hive. So very essential, I think. I currently have a few colonies that don't have bottom screens because I ran out, but that's why I'm making more. But I would never keep bees in just a bottom board any length of time other than, you know, for a few months during the summer, because I didn't have the screens ready. Okay, thank you.